This rib belongs to a Neanderthal, and this rib has a 50,000-year-old wound that has attracted the attention of archaeologists. Archaeologists have tried to reconstruct the day when the Neanderthals were wounded. On this day, a group of Neanderthals came out of the cave and were suddenly ambushed, and this group of organized strangers ambushed them with more advanced weapons. The strangers were tall and thin, well organized, they had more powerful tools, and most importantly, the creatures were so intelligent that they could imagine what would happen if throwing a stone spear. The stone spear turned out to be deep in the Neanderthal's chest, and although his companions rescued him and brought him to the cave, he died soon after. Over the next few years, the Neanderthals were exterminated, and about 22,000 years ago, the last Neanderthals died in the Golem Caves off the coast of Gibraltar. This population disappeared completely and was replaced by that the strangers, our ancestors, Homo sapiens. Since the beginning of the last century, after the discovery of 10 Neanderthal bones in the Shanidal caves, Neanderthals have been described as mentally retarded, describing them as an inferior race with undeveloped social organization. But in the 21st century, more archaeological evidence proves that the historical truth of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens is much more complex than we think. Before we move on to exploring this story, we need to illustrate a few Neanderthal misconceptions. The first is, were Neanderthals less intelligent than Homo sapiens? There is a set of data that can be compared. Neanderthals had a brain volume of about 1,600 cubic centimeters, while Homo sapiens had an average brain volume of 1,450 cubic centimeters, and it is clear that Neanderthals had a larger brain. The key indicator is the encephalization quotient, EQ, which means the portion of the brain and body. Scientists believe that the higher the encephalization quotient, the higher the IQ. The ratio of the modern human brain to the body is about 1 to 40, and the ratio of the elephant is 1 to 560, so people are smarter than elephants. What is the Neanderthal's EQ? Experts believe that Neanderthals weighed about the same as Homo sapiens, so their EQ is about 1 to 38. The Neanderthals are comparable in intelligence to Homo sapiens. The second question is, how well did Neanderthals make tools? Archaeologists believe that the stone spear thrown by Homo sapiens was the most advanced weapon in ancient times, allowing it to attack at a longer distance. In 1963, a piece of the 50,000-year-old technological artifact was unearthed in a mine 160 kilometers southwest of Berlin. It wasn't until 2001 that chemists determined its composition, and the results surprised everyone. It's an adhesive distilled from birch bark. The Neanderthals used it as glue. The spearhead and the wooden pole can be tightly glued together, and the outside can be tied with rope. This is by far the oldest synthetic material in the world. The third question is, what was the Neanderthal physique? Neanderthals were on average about 10 centimeters shorter than Homo sapiens, but they were more muscular, especially with their pectoral muscles twice as large as Homo sapiens, calculated by scientists based on muscle marks on Neanderthals' bones. Their upper limbs are also about twice as strong as Homo sapiens. To answer the last question, how organized Neanderthals were, we have to go back to the Shanidal cave, the first Neanderthal corpse excavated in this cave labeled Shanidal 1. The skeletal remains of this man are particularly valuable for study. Scientists found that he was actually a seriously injured patient, and this is a reconstruction of the skull of Shanidal 1. It can be seen that the left side of the head has been hit hard, and the bones are sunken in. The blow could have blinded him in his left eye. This picture shows his two humerus, which are the upper arm bones. His right humerus atrophied compared to his left humerus. indicating that he had been unable to use his right arm for a long time. The Shanidal one was seriously injured, but the forensic examination showed signs of healing from all the injuries, which means that during the period of his injury, he was always cared for by his companions. The Shanidal one have lived for a long time, and finally was solemnly buried by the clansmen. This shows that Neanderthals had a social civilization 40,000 years ago. In this way, Neanderthals were similar to Homo sapiens in organization, intelligence, tools, physical abilities, and organization. So why is it not Neanderthals who rule the planet today, but Homo sapiens? The answer may be more complicated than you think. In 2002, a jawbone was found in a cave in the Carpathian Mountains in southwestern Romania, and it took Romania paleontologists 3 years to restore the skull. At first, they thought it was a Homo sapiens skull, but soon they discovered that the teeth were significantly larger than Homo sapiens and that he had a raised occipital bone on the back of his head. The larger occipital bone was a Neanderthal hallmark, suggesting that the skull's owner was a hybrid, an offspring of the union of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, which means that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens have no reproductive isolation. After this discovery was published, it shook the academic community, and this individual was likely to have been 6 to 9% Neanderthal, nearly 3 times the amount found in present-day Europeans and Asians, whose genetic makeup is roughly 1 to 3% Neanderthal. Because this genome contains a large number of uninterrupted Neanderthal sequences, they determined that the connection existed within 200 years of his birth. The owner of the jawbone may have had a Neanderthal ancestor 4 to 6 generations ago, that is, the great-great-great-grandparents or great-grandparents. Since then, there has been growing evidence that it was not uncommon for Homo sapiens to have sex with Neanderthals. There are indications within the current human genome that this is happening in many different contexts and across a wide range of geographical areas. In fact, Neanderthal DNA is present in every living person today. Even Africans, whose ancestors are thought to have no direct contact with Neanderthals, have Neanderthal DNA in their bodies. At the same time, this DNA transfer is taking place in reverse. In 2016, scientists found that Neanderthals found in the Altai Mountains in Siberia may have between 1 and 7% of Homo sapiens ancestral genes that lived about 100,000 years ago. In 2008, archaeologists discovered a broken finger bone and single molar tooth in the Denisova cave in Russia's Altai Mountains, from which an entirely new subspecies of humans was revealed. For many years, the Denisovans were known only because of the small number of samples excavated in this area, and scientists have found that their DNA is still present in the genomes of people of East Asian and Melanesian ancestry. Denisovans were much more closely related to Neanderthals than modern humans are today. The distribution of the two in Asia may have overlapped for hundreds of thousands of years. This became especially evident in 2018, when a bone fragment was found and its owner was a young girl with the nickname Denny. Her mother was a Neanderthal, and her father was a Denisovan. Don't look at the fact that there are only a few Neanderthal genes in the modern human body, but these genes have a great influence on us. Our light-colored skin comes from Neanderthal genes, otherwise the color of our skin would be closer to black. Straight hair is also in Neanderthal genes, or our hair would be curly. Neanderthals are also inherited by modern humans, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, nicotine addiction, stroke, and other diseases are all related to Neanderthal genes. Feel free to leave your comments. If you like my video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. I see you in the next quest.